see you there. My name's Tom the Tale Teller, Tom the Tale Teller Phillips. I'm just out and about. I've just been to the World Storytelling Cafe. I popped in there for a cup of tea. I saw John. Hi John, if you're watching this. And on with the friends. There was Dave, and I met a fantastic new storyteller, Yanina, rhymes with Ribena, she said, and loads of others from all around the world. But I stepped out for a little walk, enjoy the beautiful sunshine we've got here, and I found some lovely spring flowering bushes. I'll tell you what, how about we go and find some stories? You see, out here in the great wild lands of Leicestershire, stories are all around. Some may be local, some may have been brought here by the winds, carried from far away. I've got my story stick as well. This will help me remember some of my stories. So let's go on a bit of an adventure, see what we can find. Come on. Oh, hello again. Isn't it beautiful? Absolutely glorious today. Last of the good days apparently before a cold front brings lots of rain and cold winds. So we better make the most of it today. Now, as I've been walking, I've been looking at my story stick, looking at the beautiful green. Everything is so green at the moment, in the full flush of green springtime. And it reminded me of a story about a very green beetle. If I look closely here, there we are. I can find him there on my story stick. And so I'll tell you this story now. Put my story stick carefully down there. There we go. My story starts long ago. And it comes from South America, from Brazil, where the beetles there are so beautifully green, each kissed with a ray of sunshine. And it starts long ago, in a time before time, in a time before you and I, in a time before humans walked the earth, when all the animals could speak the same language. And it starts with beetle. But beetle wasn't the green that we see now. No, beetle was brown. He looked a lot like a lump of mud. Some may even say a lump of poo. And so the animals and the other insects would avoid beetle because they didn't know whether they were talking to a lump of mud or to beetle himself. And it was quite embarrassing to have a conversation for half an hour realising that you've been talking to a lump of mud and they haven't said anything in return. And so it was that Beetle had no friends. And one day he was walking through the beautiful jungle all around, sobbing to himself, when, all of a sudden, he made a friend. Up to the beetle came Rat. Rat covered in grey fur, scaly tail, sharp teeth. Nobody particularly liked Rat, so Rat didn't have many friends either. But he made friends with Beetle. "All right, Beetle, how are you?" Beetle looked round and said, "Oh, Rat, you're talking to me." "Yeah, I am," said Rat. "I'm talking to you because I want you to be my friend. Will you be my friend?" Beetle was overwhelmed. Beetle said, "Yes, of course I will be your friend." And so off they went. And they talked and they talked and they talked. And they talked all about Rat. And then they talked more about Rat. And more about Rat. And about Rat. And about Rat. And this went on day by day. And they did things that Rat wanted to do. And they spoke more about Rat. They did more things that Rat wanted to do. And Rat started to give Beetle nicknames like, "Hey, lump of mud. Hey, poo brain. "Hey, Stinky." "Well, you're stinky because you look like a pile of poo. So you must be stinky." Poor Beetle didn't feel right at all. This couldn't be right, thought Beetle. This couldn't be what friendship was all about. And then, one day as they were walking through the jungle, Parrot, beautiful, colourful rainbow parrot, sat in the trees, and he saw this going on and he thought, no, that's not right. And so he swooped down, he sat on a low branch and he said, "Hello!" And Rat and Beetle stopped. They looked up. "Hello," said Beetle. "All right," said Rat. "I am," said Parrot. "I'm fine. But I've realised I'm being a bit greedy." "Why are you being greedy?" said Rat. "Well, I've got all these colours," said Parrot, "and I haven't shared any of them. You two look like you could do with a bit of colour. Rat, you're very grey, and Beetle, how brown." "Oh yes," said Beetle, "I'd love to be a different colour, any colour at all." "Yeah, sounds like a all right plan. Right, who are you going to give it to?" "Me, of course," said Rat. "Well, no," said Parrot. "We'll do a race. First one from that tree to that tree wins. You get to pick any colour you like." And Rat thought for a second. He looked at Beetle, and Beetle was only small, and Rat was big. He had big legs, and he was fast. And he said, "Yeah, go on then. I'll win it easy." Beetle smiled to himself and said, "Okay." So Beetle sat upon the tree. Rat sat on the ground below. Parrot, somewhere in the middle, shouted, 3, 2, 1, go! And off they went. Rat leaving Beetle in a cloud of dust. And he ran over the branches, over the roots, under the branches, under the roots, round logs, through logs, until at last he got to the other tree. And he stopped and he celebrated. "Yeah, I'm the best, I'm brilliant, I've done it, I've beaten you, Beetle." But he couldn't see Beetle. He turned around and there in front of him on the tree was Beetle. "How did you do that?" said Rat. "You must have cheated." "Parrot, he cheated." Parrot looked down. Said, "No, he didn't. He flew there." Rat said, "What do you mean he flew there? He can't fly." Beetle said, "Yes, I can." "Well, you ain't got no wings," said Rat. And that's when Beetle showed him. He opened his hard shell, and out from underneath that plain brown hard shell came some beautiful iridescent clear wings. "Well, I didn't know that. That's not fair. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have raced you. Or said no flying, but we didn't have a race." "Wait," said Parrot. "I thought you said he was your friend. And you should know things about your friend, things as important as them having wings. So therefore, Beetle is the winner. End of." And Rat, well, he spat his dummy out, he threw his toys out the pram, and he had a right hissy fit and a mardy, as we say here in Leicestershire. A proper mardy he was. And off he stormed. Beetle grinned. He was so happy it was going to get colour, but then he realised he had lost his only friend. "Oh," he said, "I've lost my friend." Parrot said, "Look, don't you worry about him. He wasn't a true friend. He didn't know anything about you. Trust me on this." And so it was that Beetle had to choose a colour, and he looked all around. There were blues and yellows and reds in the flowers that were blossoming in the jungle, but then he looked up. He looked up into the tree canopy, and he saw the green of the leaves, and each leaf, whether nibbled or whole, had a little ray of sunshine bursting through. And he said to Parrot, "Parrot, if you'd be so kind, please, I'd like to be that green with a spot of sunlight." And so it was, just like that. He was green, with a golden ray of sunshine glinting off his shell. And ever since then, people began to notice him. and they wanted to talk to him and be his friend because he was so beautiful. But Beetle remembered what had happened with Rat, and he remembered the only people he called friends were those that looked out for him as much as he looked out for them, the ones that got to know him as much as he got to know them. And so it was that Beetle lived, like in all good stories, happily ever after. Well, one story done. Should we go for another walk? Should we go and see what we can see? Okay, I'll meet you at the next place. Bye for now. Hello. The Fairy Tree. Lisa's got a fantastic set, all about stories from the countryside. If you want to learn more about trees like this, go and listen to Lisa's set. But a story from me about not the hawthorn tree, but two trees. In fact, this is very local. And it's a story that happened just a few miles that way. I live here in Barwell, just next to Hinckley, which is there, in Leicestershire. My story, it's one that was written up by a local man called Ted. And he wrote it based on the tellings of this story by a local woman who got it from goodness knows where. So it's lovely, I can trace the roots of this. From me to Ted Orton to this woman who lived over 100 years ago and beyond. And you'll find it also in my book, Leicestershire Folktales for Children. And this story tells of two trees, an oak and an ash. And these trees have grown together, intertwined. And so the story cropped up explaining why these two trees have managed to grow so closely together. And this is my story. It was a time when Earl Shilton, Kirby Mallory and Peckleton, three small hamlets, farmed the land around them. And their land met in the middle of a triangle of land. And all three villages, Earl Shilton, Kirby Mallory and Peckleton, were very, very suspicious of their neighbours. Neighbourly love was nowhere to be seen. They would sit in their taverns at night and gossip about the neighbouring villages. And heaven forbid that anyone should think to go to one of the neighbouring villages and have a drink, even talk to someone, even have the nerve to move there. So it was on a day much like today. The men and the women were out in the fields and they were toiling away, and sweat was dripping from their brow, for the sun was beating hot upon them. And as they were sweating so much, the Earl Shilton lot said to one of the young lads, said, "Oi, you, go down to the river, down to the stream and fetch us a bucket of water so we may douse the sweat from our head and carry on working." The Kirby Mallory lot, they said to a young lady, said, "Oi, young lady, we're parched. Go and fetch a bucket of water from the stream so we may douse ourselves and carry on working. Cheers, me duck." So it was, the young man and the young woman, they came down and they converged at the same time at the stream. And they began to fill their buckets either side of the stream, neither of them daring to look up.
But then they stopped, and the river water settled, and they could see a rippled reflection of each other in the waters. And the young man dared to look up first. He lifted his eyes, and they fell upon a beautiful young woman. Her features were soft, they were delicate, and he could feel his heart leap in his chest. As for the young woman, she looked up and she saw a strapping young man. A young man unlike any in her village. A large brow, broad shoulders, a stern chin, and she could feel the flutters in her heart and in her belly. Well, they never said anything. They went back to their work. A day after day went by, and as they were toiling away in the field, digging or ploughing, they would often stop, look up, and look over the stream, and their eyes would meet. And the young lady, she would watch as the young man would mop the beads of hard work from his forehead and take a long drink. And she would smile to herself. And he would watch as she dug and ploughed and worked hard. And at all times she kept up the manner of a true lady. Then the day came when they were sent down again at the same time to the stream. And when they got to the stream, the young man dared to say something. He whispered the words, "I think I love you." And they fell from his lips, and they bubbled and skipped like stones over the surface of the water, then bounced up the arm of the young lady and into her ear. She blushed, and she smiled. And he said, "If you feel the same way, meet here by this stream tonight when it's dark. Here when it's dark. Okay?" And she said nary a word. She just smiled, turned, giggled, and ran away. Well, that night when the sun fell and the moon rose fat and bright in the sky, the young man came to that field, the triangular field next to the river, next to the stream, and he sat there waiting. And he waited. And he waited until he started to lose all hope. But then, as the mist started to rise from the ground and hang about a foot from the stream, he saw a figure, a dark figure, approach. That's when he thought, was it her? Or was it somebody else from the village? Had she let it slip? Had she sent her father or her brothers just do him in? But as the figure got closer, he could see that she wore a dress, and she walked with grace and decorum. And when she got close enough, he could see that yes, it was the woman that he'd fallen in love with. And they sat that night and they talked. You know how you do when you just click with someone? They talked and they talked and they talked and they talked. They talked until the moon had gone through the sky and gone back to sleep again. They talked until the sky started to turn grey and the sun started to poke its head above the horizon. And the young lady said, "Oh, I've got to get home. I've got work." And so they both went, but not before agreeing to come back the next night. And night after night they met. And this went on for a whole year. And the two, well, not only did they talk, but they kissed and they embraced and they did what lovers do. And they started to draw up plans of how they were going to run away to London to seek their fame and fortune. Well, my friends, life has a way of throwing spanners in the works. And this spanner happened one cool spring evening. When the young lady turned up, she had tears coming down her cheeks, And the young man said, "Why are you crying? What's the matter?" And she said, "I can't see you anymore." "Of course you can," he said. "This is a secret, nobody knows." She said, "No, I can't see you. You see, my father has arranged for me to marry someone from Peckleton. So Kirby Mallory and Peckleton farms, their lands may be merged. And that's too much of a bigger deal. I can't pass that up. I can't do that to my father and let him down." "Well, marry me," said the young man, "and then our farms can be joined. Earl Shilton and Kirby Mallory." "No," she says, "I can't. You should hear what he says about your family and about your friends. He will never let me marry someone from Earl Shilton. I have to do what I have to do." "But wait," said the young man, "if we can't see each other anymore, if you're adamant we can't see each other anymore, let us do something." And he looked around and picked up 2 seeds. One, an ash seed. One, an acorn. And he gave one to the woman and he kept one. And they planted them next to each other, there in that triangular field next to the stream. And they vowed that they would take it in turns, night after night, to come down to water the seeds and to look after them. And they did. And each night they could tell the other was doing their job, because the seeds would grow a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and they grew together. And as they grew old, so too did the woman and the man grow old, never seeing each other, but always knowing that their trees were growing together, much like their love had. And so they passed on, but the trees remained in a permanent embrace. Until, and this is the part that I can add now, this is the part that you won't find in Ted Orton's retelling. You see, I wrote this story for my Leicestershire Folktales book, and I sent it to Jenna Catton, a fantastic storyteller in her own right and a beautiful illustrator. The work she does, they're fantastic, they're beautiful, you should check them out. Jenna Catton. I sent the story to her, and she took a drive out here, and she followed the directions in my book. She parked up at the church and she followed the footpath down, and then she sent me a picture, or 3. See, what she found was the oak tree still stood, but the ash tree had been cut down the day before and was in pieces all on the floor. One could only assume something like ash dieback, and so the farmer was protecting the people using the footpath and cutting the tree down, which is fair enough, but a very sad ending to our story. But then I remembered the roots. You see, all plants, all trees have roots, and those roots go down into the ground, and they're almost as big as the tree above, if not bigger. So although the trees are no longer hugging, the roots will be forever intertwined, reminding us the love of that young man from Earl Shilton and the young woman from Kirby Mallory. That's the end of my second story. I'll go for another walk, we'll find somewhere else, we'll sit and we'll have a third story. See you soon. Hello! You join me here in the shade of these wonderful bushes and trees, out of the sun because it's getting hot. Now my final story for you guys today is a story about an animal that you'd find somewhere like this, in the briar patches, hiding in the hedges and the hedgerows. An animal hiding from Reynard, from Mr. Todd himself. Yes, you guessed it, my friends. There he is. Rabbit. Now Rabbit, He's by far one of the most colourful characters in folklore history. And this story of Rabbit comes from North America. And it starts in a time before you and I, a time before grown-ups, grandparents, and before people walked on this earth, when all the animals could speak the same language. In a time when Beetle was brown, when Robin didn't have his red chest, before Tiger and Zebra got their stripes. My story starts with Rabbit. And Rabbit, back in those time before times, he had a lovely long bushy tail. So long and bushy, like squirrels and foxes, it could come up and wrap round his neck in the winter to keep him warm. And in the summer, on days that are hot like this, he would use it to fan himself, to keep himself cool. And he loved his tail so much that he often sang about it. He would be hopping along singing, I got a lovely tail, like I'm a lovely tail, I got a lovely tail. Well, my friends, pride often comes before a fall, and this is the story of his fall. You see, on a day like today when it was very hot, Rabbit was hopping along the edge of a bayou, a great area of swamp. And as he was hopping along, he stopped and he turned and he saw, out on the other side of the bayou, a large field that had been planted with his favourite food. You guessed it, carrots. Carrots as far as the eye could see. And he said, ooh-wee! He said, I gotta get me some of those carrots. But there was a problem, a rather large problem, a large, wet, boggy problem. You see, Rabbit couldn't swim. And that bog, that swamp, that bayou was far too big for him to hop over, and far too wide for him to travel round. It would take him the best part of a day, maybe two. And so he sat by a tree under the shade of its boughs, like I am now, and he fanned himself with his tail, and he thought a thought, he think to think, and he thunk a thunk until he came up with an idea. And that's when he shouted, Alligator, he shouted. Oh, alligator! Where are you, alligator? And he watched. And he waited. And he waited. And he watched. Until, all of a sudden, out from the murky, greeny brown water came two bobbly eyes, a bobbly nose, a bobbly back, and a big, toothy grin. What do you want? Snapped Alligator. Whoa! Rabbit jumped. Oh, nothing. I was just sat here in the sun and the shade, and I was just wondering. You see, what are you wondering? Said Alligator. It better be good, because you woke me from a nap. Rabbit said, well, I was just wondering. You see, I got loads of people in my family, because rabbits are, we do what rabbits do best. But you got loads of people in your family too, Alligator. And I was wondering who got the biggest family, me or you. Now let me tell you something about Alligator. Alligator always had to be the biggest and the best at everything. He always had to win any challenge, and Rabbit knew this, and he was playing to that. And so Alligator said, I got the family, biggest family. Of course I got the biggest family. Watch this. And so, taking the bait, he shouted, Brothers, sisters, come and show this rabbit what we got. And Rabbit watched, and his jaw opened as he saw bobbly eyes and bobbly noses and bobbly backs and toothy grins filling the swamp until half of it was full. See, said Alligator. Oh-wee, said Rabbit. You sure got a lot of people in your family, but I got more than that. I ain't finished yet, said Alligator, interrupting him. Watch this. Cousins, aunties, uncles, parents, grandparents, come and show this rabbit what we got. And Rabbit watched, and his jaw dropped all the way to the floor, as every single spare space of swamp was filled with bobbly eyes, bobbly noses, bobbly backs, and toothy grins, until the bayou was so packed full of alligators they could not move. An alligator said, "See, I told you we got more in my family than in yours. Guess I'm the winner then." And then Rabbit began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, and then a titter, and then a full-on belly laugh. He said. "What are you laughing at?" said Alligator. "You see, I don't really care," said Rabbit. "I never cared. I just wanted to do this." And that's when he did it. He hopped onto the back of Alligator, using him as a stepping stone. And then Alligator, well, he began to try to swing his jaws round to catch Rabbit in his jaws with a great snap. But Rabbit was too quick, and Alligator was too squished in. By the time Alligator managed to manoeuvre out of the tight squeeze he was in, Rabbit was on to the next alligator, then the next alligator, then the next and the next and the next, and each alligator in turn swung their jaws round and snap, snap, snap they went, but not quick enough. Rabbit managed to get all the way across that bayou without a single alligator catching him, until he stopped, not quite in the field but not quite in the swamp, on a stretch of mossy, grassy, squidgy bit of ground, and he rolled on his back and he laughed. Oh, how he laughed. "I tricked you real good. You see, Rabbit stopped laughing, but he wasn't the only one laughing. The alligators, they were all laughing too, big, toothy laughs. You see, what Rabbit hadn't realised was that mossy, grassy bit of ground he was sat on wasn't a mossy, grassy bit of ground. Oh no, it was great, 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 great Granddaddy Alligator. Now, because great, 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 great Granddaddy Alligator was so old, moss and grass had started to grow on his back. But just because great, 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 great Granddaddy Alligator was so old didn't mean he was slow. Oh no. He was still the fastest alligator in that whole entire swamp, and he swung his jaws round and they went snap. Rabbit felt a shot of pain going from his backside up through his backbone up to his skull, and he shot up in the air. Ow! And then he landed. And as he shot in the air, he heard a and he landed with a thud. He turned round and he noticed, "My tail! My tail! My tail!" And he looked, and there, hanging out of the corner of great, 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 great Granddaddy Alligator's mouth, was a white, fluffy tail. And he laughed. And Rabbit sobbed, "My beautiful tail!" For all that was left was a little white stub, which he's still got even to this day. And as you see Rabbit running away, he flashes the stub at you to show you that he's lost his tail. And please don't hurt him or try and get him again, because he learned a very important lesson that day, to not trick alligator. And I hope you learn a very important lesson as well. Do not ever try and trick alligator, for he will bite your tail off too. What? You've not got a tail? I seem to have mislaid mine as well. Well, in that case, you might have your leg off. And I tell you what, it's quite handy having both legs, unless you're really good at hopping. Glad you enjoyed that story. I'm sure you did. I'm going to say goodbye here. This is where I leave you, in the shade of the trees. Thank you so much for listening to my stories. I hope to come and visit the World Storytelling Cafe again. Don't forget as well, I've got a hat down there. Any contribution would be greatly accepted, because I have no audience. I have no events to go and tell to, big ones and little ones. So I have no money coming in from that side of things. Make sure you go and check out all the other wonderful storytellers, for I'll keep nipping back to the World Storytelling Cafe to listen to their sets. There's also live stuff going on as well. Check that out. Thank you to everyone involved in this project for letting me have a chance to come on here and tell my stories.
and from the fields outside the back of my house, right here in Leicestershire. I will say thank you from Tom the Tale Teller Phillips to you, the audience, and bye bye.